A West Auckland man who attacked his mother with a hammer before calling the police has been found guilty of murder. Martin Marinovich was his mother's sole carer when he smashed her head with a hammer in their Oratia home last February. The 28-year-old told a family friend he couldn't cope a week before he attacked her, and today he was found guilty of murder. Our court reporter Anneke Smith has been following the case and joins us now. Anneke, so bring us up to date. What happened in court today?
Well, today, after Justice Walker summed up the case, the jury went out and had to decide whether this case was murder or manslaughter, Martin Marinovich having accepted that he attacked his mother with a hammer and killed her. Now, after 3 hours of deliberations, they returned with a unanimous guilty verdict that was unanimous guilty of murder. Martin Marinovich was emotionless, as he has been throughout much of this trial in the dock, and he's been remanded in custody to reappear in April for sentencing.
So what is the backstory to the case? We heard a lot about him caring for his mother. What is the background?
Yeah, the evidence that was called over the course of last week really painted a picture of the background, but also the context in which this attack happened last February. We started by hearing a 111 call that Martin Marinovich made to police the night that he attacked his mother. He attacked her with a hammer, showered, and then drove to a nearby train station where he called police and effectively dobbed himself in. It was a highly distressing phone call. He was panting, at times not making sense and crying. And when he was located by police, he told them that he'd killed his mother. He actually gave evidence in his own defence last week. He said it had snapped after having an argument with his mother over money. Money was extremely tight. They were living off his mother's sickness benefit. And he was in charge of keeping the house, looking after her, taking her medication, that sort of a thing. So he said he snapped after this argument, strangled her, she died, then he picked up a hammer and smashed her head. He was very clear to say that she was dead before he picked up the hammer. But a post-mortem showed that Nolene Marinovich, that was his mother's name, actually had defensive injuries consistent with a hammer to her forearm and hand. So his story didn't quite match the forensic evidence. Martin Marinovich was cross-examined by Crown Prosecutor Robin McCoubry, and he couldn't really say why he picked up the hammer, given his story. And following his story, his mother was dead by the time he did that. What he was thinking at the time that he picked up the hammer was crucial to the jury's inquiry today, and they found that he had an intention to kill her.
So he looked after his mother full time. There was evidence that things were sort of degenerating in terms of the condition of the house and his care of her as well, wasn't there?
That's right. When police arrived at the scene and found Nolene Marinovich dead, the house was in a really filthy state. The toilet wasn't working. It was very dirty and unkept. It was clear that it hadn't been properly kept for a long time. Martin Marinovich told the jury that with all he had to do looking after his mother, he didn't have time to clean the house. We heard that Nolene had bipolar disorder, was diagnosed with that a very long time ago and had been actually quite well for at least a decade, managed with medication, but her actual physical health had deteriorated quite a bit over the past few years, and she'd become particularly unsteady on her feet and would have falls or collapse and be admitted to hospital. She was actually admitted to hospital a week before she died, and we heard last week from a family friend, Janet Daniel, who visited her in hospital and spoke to Martin Marinovich, who told Ms. Daniel that he couldn't cope looking after his mother anymore. She told him, look, Martin, don't bring her home, leave her in hospital. But of course, we know that she did go back home, and that's when the attack happened. We've contacted the Waitemata DHB to query what support, if any, was offered to this family, but they've come back to us saying they're unable to release details due to patient confidentiality.
So what happens next?
So Martin Marinovich will appear in the High Court for sentencing in April. It's expected, as with any murder conviction, he will receive a life sentence.
Thanks, Anneke. That is Anneke Smith, who has been in court for that case involving Martin Marinovich, who has today been found guilty of murdering his mother. He was her sole carer.